Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street Quant video here, QNT. Very short one here, we did Quant a few days ago, but I just wanted to bring out this awesome video that's come out from Quant. If you haven't done so already, I do recommend subscribing to the Quant newsletter. You get all the recent updates pretty much as they come out and straight away, usually before or just about before they go on social media and things as well. So we'll just have a quick listen here. This is off the back of the CBOS event. So the CMO Andrew, who did a mini interview with Gilbert outside the event a couple of weeks ago. I can't believe how fast that's gone by. But of course we got here as well now Gilbert and also the Chief Product Officer, Martin Hargreaves, as well. There was a multitude of topics. I do recommend to have a quick look online for this. It's very interesting, loads of different aspects about tokenization internationally and domestically as well, of digital assets and currencies, of course, as well. And then towards the latter stages, they go into a bit more detail about central bank digital currencies. Now, just before I play this, the bit before this was Martin explaining that the programmability, if that's the right word, is not the problem. It's more to do with policy. And this is quite a very huge, big point. Because, of course, as you know, there are many, many countries and continents around the world that have their own financial regulations, financial frameworks, and all these things. We know that the CBDC framework is being implemented by well over 100 major banks worldwide right now in its experimental stage that we covered in a multitude of videos, especially around the new RTGS system, enhancing or replacing the existing SWIFT and CHAP systems that have been going on for a multitude of decades, being replaced with a digital solution utilizing the messaging and compliance of ISO 20022 as well. So let's just have a quick listen to what Gilbert had to say about the policy aspects. It's a really interesting topic. Let's have a listen.
You know, technology is great and how you implement and develop it, but it's really driven by the human need, and that's really shaped by policy. You know, What does this mean for people? What does this mean for businesses? I think, you know, CBDCs are no longer a fictional concept. These are real. That they are happening. It's really driven from the top down. It's not just the central banks, but the governments of countries are putting policy out there saying we will have a CBDC. We will have a more digital economy. It increases GDP, creates jobs, and it makes us more competitive in the global landscape. Personally, I think CBDCs are a great tool for not only the technology side, having payments automated and programmable and smart, but also on the policy side. It really gives central banks the ability to control monetary and fiscal policies in a new way.
More granular?
It's more granular. You have better visibility of risk, you know, from a resilience and systemic risk perspective. If we had CBDCs, we probably wouldn't have had the financial crisis in 2008 because the contagion effect you would have predicted and prevented once you see something happening within a part of the financial system. And if there is a contagion, you can actually have remedies in place to prevent it, you know, spreading to other parts of the system. So from a risk perspective, it's a great technology. And then from the people side, even today, it's extremely difficult for government to, from a COVID example, to disperse £1,000 or $1,000 to all their citizens. That is still very difficult in 2022. Having digitized money allows that rapid, acceleration of money or the receiving of money to happen right to the end consumer, right to the end.
Funny you should mention that, because
now, that's a really interesting point mentioning at the end there, because the research videos we did a while back, if we look at like the COVID relief fund, for example, in the US, way back in 2019, a good 6-7 months before it became a mainstream situation, there was the relief fund. It was actually originally, I believe, named for the economic relief, but then later changed naming rights because of the situation around the world, and of course in the US, as everywhere was affected. But in this bill, this COVID relief bill, you can find it on public domain, not a problem. If you scroll throughout the framework and the information of that bill, it is heavily related to the digital dollar, and even reference to the Federation or the Federal Reserve, suggesting that this would be allocated via wallets and that eventually those wallets would be majorly owned by them anyway, that they could essentially switch money on and off if they needed to. And this is the aspect where we're talking about in this conversation, really, about policy. And just before this video started as well, which is why I recommend having a listen to the whole thing, they did mention as well about some of the pros and cons of CBDCs. Now, it's great to hear these guys in this room having the conversation about this, because we need to ensure that policy framework is there, not just for institutions and corporations and banks, but also for us, the residential domestic users, because there is a lot of wording out there about how CBDCs could potentially be used to take away money or give money as and when it's pleased, and also potentially integrate with our behaviors of how we purchase and buy things, or maybe not even be allowed to do that based on things that we have or haven't done around the world or the macro events that occur. So right now, there are many questions. Every time I talk to people about CBDCs, they're like, the government will never be able to implement it. This will never happen. We just heard it from Gilbert here as well, that CBDCs are real and they are happening. We know this. We know the RTGS system is being replaced. We know the standardization of 222 is in play right now, especially being piloted across a multitude of countries, and a multitude of cross-border payment trials are occurring right now, even to the point where the UK banks here are doing this with about 7 or 9 other countries across the world simultaneously in the next few months as part of the first element of the integration. So we know all this is here, but policy is key. We know the technology is there, we know the ability is there, but how does it work? Each country, as I said, has its own framework, its own legislations and things like this. So overall, it will eventually conclude, and this will take time. And I do think that based on the RTGS application of being November 2025, whether CBDCs are integrated by then or not is another question. But I do believe that this framework coming over the next couple of years is extremely important to keep an eye on. And more people are becoming aware of these standardizations, the RTGS narrative, the narrative around CBDCs. We've seen basic universal income coming with a big, massive narrative right now. And as Gilbert mentioned just then, it's very ironic. We were talking about the digital dollar with the bill, where he was suggesting that it was very difficult for money to be not necessarily created as such, but also to be transferred to people or utilized. We call that like the furlough here in the UK, and it's probably crisis funds, or as I said, relief funds and things like this, that are different naming across the world, right? But with the minting of digital currency, which is arguably not really that much different to minting paper money, in only the fact that we can do this via computing and quantum methods, asks or begs the question as to like, how far can this go? And if this is the case digitally, is inflation even a thing for the future? In terms of crisis, as you mentioned as well, about the algorithmic data in general, being able to stop bad things happening again in the future, money laundering, counterfeiting, fraudulent activity, the aspect, as he mentioned, of removal of financial crisis, like we saw in 2008, like we're seeing or being in the midst of right now, can that be avoided based on algorithmic data, quantum computing, if you like, and the utilization of digital tokenization assets and digital currencies? So that's what my question really is, and anyone feel free to answer this, but if we've got this and we're able to stop bad things from happening with it, and yes, of course, CBDCs could be used in a not a great way towards people in general, will we ever have inflation issues or debt issues ever again? because we should, in theory, be able to stop this based on data and trend and the utilization of digital currencies and being able to shut things off immediately rather than waiting or for the wrong people to be making the decisions. And then the big question is, who operates this entire system? We know that there's big narratives around like the World Economic Forum and other organizations around the world of that magnitude that are looking to implement this as soon as possible. But to do that, you need all governments, you need all itineraries around the world accumulated in the same mindset. This is the big challenge, and policy is the big challenge, as they mentioned. So I think it's a really big, massive topic. And the reason I always pull this with Quant, of course, they're talking more and more about CBDCs now, which is really exciting for me as an investor and an interest in blockchain and cryptography in general. But Quant is one of those top projects that's going to be involved all the way across at the very top level as well. We know, the partnership aspect of it, the integrations with the banks, the integrations with the people around the world. It's quite phenomenal. But the other talking point here, of course, if we just look into this chart, is the movement of Quant as a price. And I think this is going to be an absolute giant of a crypto asset to be holding for the near future and the years to come. We even saw back here, I reiterate what I've said in previous videos, September 2021, reaching the heights of over $400. The proper finance tokens, guys, and people always say, like, well, why isn't XRP big? Why isn't XLM big? Well, that's because they're early. They're still integrating and they're still developing and they're still putting in this philosophy. But the likes of Quant are a bit of a step ahead. The partnership levels are extremely higher in terms of both integration partners and partners in general that will be utilizing this kind of technology and product. And of course, Quant has the QNT token has a massive utility, within this system too. So there's a lot of legroom here. But one of the things, first of all, in the short-term sense, is the opportunities to be obtained in Quant at some really good price points. Okay. Now, I managed to accumulate, as I said in the previous video, quite a bit at this $44, $45 mark. Okay, that's fantastic. We then reached across over the 100 mark, and even to the point where the CBOS event, etc., was occurring, and even just before that, where the price point went well over $200 again. A lot of people saw profit opportunities and took that out for sure. And then we've stabilized ourselves again. So actually, if you look at the upward trend of Quant, it's pretty bang on to where it should be. And in fact, it's almost relatively in line with the fib retracement chart mechanisms that we put in here. From some lower points and higher points, you can actually see the trend line building in there as well. So we're now accumulating back down towards this $100 mark. I had previously hit the $102 buy order that I had, but it did actually come back down to $94 in total that particular day on the 14th of November. Since then, we've had a bit of an upward trend. People get excited again and saying, oh, this is going up, it's going. But you have to understand where we are in the charts, where we are historically, where we are with the macro events around the world. But saying all that, putting all that aside, Quant is a fantastic price point again. Floating, as of recording, $103. I'm still going to have my $87 buy point down here. And I do actually have a few orders back down here as well in these lower regions, floating around $74 to $72. If it's lower than that, that'll be manual positions by myself as and when those times get nearer, if they do at all. But right now, this again is another nice buy point for me around this 102 mark. I don't like doing it rounded numbers. I either do it slightly above or slightly below. Either way, we're talking about a $4 or $5 difference here, and it depends on how much you're accumulating, of course, which will determine the value proposition that you could get out of this, okay? But these are really interesting points of data. As we mentioned in previous videos, you see all these circles. These are all buy points that we've hit before, even before they actually hit those, by the way, to show you a bit of the trend aspect here. But you can see now we're matching again back into September, the resistance that we saw back here in July as well, and even some elements of support between the beginning of August and the end of August respectively as well. But if you pull it back even further, you will see some really good data points. Particularly interested here in June 2021, where we saw a nice spike up, but then penetrated significantly throughout the month of July last year, all the way up. And then we never saw it again for some time until it came back to these lower regions. January this year was the last time significantly we were down at this area and stayed down there for a bit of more of time than we've seen in recent times. So this area, as I said, if you look across the whole entire spectrum here and in line as well, our area of interest that we drew ages and ages ago is now hitting back down to that lower region. So this is a good entry point in my opinion. It's not financial advice. This is just where I am accumulating right now today, but with some buy orders, as I said, in lower positions just in case. And that is reflective again on some of the resistance and support lines that we've seen throughout July and September respectively. You can see them 1, 2, 3 across here. And of course you could go back further, and in my opinion this is not enough data and confirmation points to suggest, in my opinion, that 87 is a ticked off number right now. So we have to anticipate these potential opportunities. We look at the RSIs on here. You see the sell-off is fading slightly. The MACD you can just about see. I'm just going to move the green out of the way a bit. The blue and the red here on the MACDs, they're slightly narrowing. They're slightly reducing. It's a bit of a sharp one over the last few days, so I've just got to be a bit cautious about that. But as this stabilizes, this is where we could see that fluctuation between here and the 120, maybe potentially dipping down below $100. And these are good areas to really consider potential opportunities of accumulation. The 14-day is showing 34, the 20-day is showing 41. We know from my previous videos that anything around the 40 marks on either of these are really significant opportunities, and especially with the 34. So we're sub 40 on the 14-day now, so a bit of a short-term momentum gain potentially on the cards. Not as low as it was back here on the 9th of November. Of course, the FTX situation kicked in as well. We saw 28.38. That was a really good opportunity, and as I said, I take I think it was 102 or slightly just over $102 that I had my buy order, and it came down to the 94s, which is mentioned. But yeah, right now it's stabilizing, and this is always a really positive aspect for me as someone that's trying to accumulate, and especially for the long term. People ask me, like, do I sell Quant? No, I do not. I'm holding it for years to come, and I'm just basically trying to buy as much Quant as I can around these sort of $100 to $200 marks. If I can get them sub 100, even more amazing, because I do think this is going to be a phenomenally massive gaining opportunity for your portfolio and mine. So we see on the week the 1.8% up on the week. It's not huge. It's probably dying down and fizzing out slightly after all the great momentum that it had over the last few days. But the 3 month and the 1 months are looking very strong compared to a lot of other assets out there, particularly the 3 month. The 6 months is looking fantastically strong as well. And as I said previously, it's very rare at the moment to find many crypto assets that are sub 70 or even indeed 80% in negative at the moment on the year to date and the year progressive as well. So this, in my mind, is showing a lot of confidence. It's showing a lot of people hold this. It's a very valuable asset to be holding, but still, at the end of the day, the market is acclimatized towards what's going on in the world, what's going on in the market in general. So we do have to anticipate potential lower opportunities, as well as Quant is doing as a token in the market. We have to be aware of this. So that's my take on Quant at the moment. And certainly from the last video that we did, which I believe was a few days ago, maybe 4 or 5 days ago, that we did the last Quant video. So a lot has happened really in terms of its fluctuation in price movements, but of course it's something we must really get continuously excited about and continuously build the knowledge about this, guys. Please do go and watch those videos. Go and sign up to the Quant newsletter. I'm not an ambassador for them or anything, by the way. I'm just very excited about this project and the technology behind it, and I absolutely love it when we've got those kind of levels of people talking about this with their own project, but also not paving over the cracks, as it were. They're really open about the pros and cons of things and what they're trying to achieve as a solution to improve the world, to improve what they are doing as well. So guys, let us know what you think in the comments below about this. I know there's a big following here in the channel for Quant, and I want to keep this momentum going because I do think there's huge things to come for this, and I'm so excited to look forward to the next few years of developing this knowledge and experience with these guys. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll leave that one there. Please do not forget, of course, to smash that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Other than that, thank you. We will see you in the next Quant video. Take care. Bye bye.